Welcome to Youth Talks, brought to you by State of Youth.
Everyone. My name is Garvita, and I am one of the State of Youth board members. Apart from that, I am a part of several initiatives that are helping pioneer environmental change. For the past 6 years, I've been an environmentalist myself, and I love working with young people and helping them become a part of change. So, welcome to all of you to the first episode of Youth Talks, the State of Youth podcast. This podcast is a space to talk about hot topics for youth and activists from across the world. We will publish one episode every 2 weeks, and we will be discussing different matters with diverse and interesting guests. Today, we will talk about Earth Day. And of course, I had to do this with someone who has been pioneering work in this field for a very, very long time. So I'd love to introduce my first guest, Gary. Gary, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. I would love to start off by getting to know you a little bit more.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Garvita. It's very exciting to be on the first episode of the State of the Youth Youth Talks. I'm very excited to speak to you about some of our work here on the island of Bali, which revolves, around so much around the environment. So, no, thank you for having me on.
Lovely. So, Gary, why don't we start off with hearing a little bit more in detail about the work that you're doing and what got you started?
Completely. So I grew up on this very beautiful island of Bali in Indonesia, known as the Island of Gods. And very early on, we would see plastic pollution, ending up in every corner of the island, on every single beach. It was something that you really cannot look away from. So 12 years ago, at 14 years old, I started Make a Change World to stop plastic pollution from coming into our beaches, but more so in our rivers. For about the last year, in the midst of COVID, our movement really, really grew on the island to protect Bali's waterways. We're very community-led, but we are pioneering various trash barrier solutions to stop plastic pollution on land before it goes out into the ocean. So we have a full army of 35 troops that are full-time paid staff. So we go out every single day to 50 rivers right now, where we have 50 trash barriers to try to, one, bring the trash and recycle it in our research station. So we look at every single types of plastics by brand, by color, but also by type, to try to hold some of the brands accountable to some of the trash that we find in the rivers. So the mission, would be to scale our project Sungai Watch around the world, but starting here in Bali. So this year, we're setting up another 50 here on Bali to have a full 100. So we should hit that number by around July. And then we're going to tackle the island closest to Bali, which is Java, probably the most populated island in the world. So that's, Bali has sort of been the stepping stones, the practice before taking on the big monster, which is, Java.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Gary. And I think what you're doing is extremely powerful. But at the same time, I love the excitement with which you shared it. I think that's what would motivate anyone to want to come on to this path. So thank you so much for sharing that. Gary, can you tell me a little bit more about, what moves you every single day to continue to be a part of this movement?
No, completely. I think when you look at, for me, plastic pollution, when you look at the stats, 2050, more plastics than fish in the ocean, 90% of plastics coming from land, from rivers and streams. I've seen some of the worst rivers in the world. With my brother, 4 years ago, we went down the most polluted river in the world on 2 plastic bottle kayaks, only to realize, that we were stuck in like this plastic moving landfill. And so for me to see the horrors of the world and to see how far we've destructed our planet really has shaken me to the extremes. And now, sort of dedicated my life to try to combat this. What moves me is that, every day when we do a river cleanup, on on each of the 50 berries that we have, and you see the before after photos, those are like the small successes that get you super hyped up. But it's definitely, a long-term mission. So you need to keep up the perseverance, and change is not going to happen overnight. So especially with all issues environmentally related. So you have to stay ambitious. Yeah, you have to stay positive, and hopefully, step by step, big change can happen.
Yeah, I think what you said is so powerful, because very often while solving problems of the world, we tend to get so bogged down with the issues, and we feel so overwhelmed by how negative it can possibly be or possibly be portrayed. And so being able to find those moments of positivity is, I think, a superpower that you have accomplished and empowered yourself and the people around you with. So thank you for sharing that with me. It was so powerful. So to just jump in, right? We're talking about Earth Day here. What to you is the significance of Earth Day as a youth, and how would you think that? What does this mean to you and the work that you do? A specific day dedicated to the Earth.
I think, more and more different organizations around the world are celebrating there's so many different days out there. Every day of the year, there's World Ocean Day, you have literally everything that you can think about, there's a day for that. But Earth Day, April 22nd, is quite special. Especially for me, it is my anniversary with my girlfriend, actually, on Earth Day, so that makes it double special. And she's also a fellow environmental activist, so who would have known? But other than that,
it's like meant to be.
Actually, no. But other than that, it's like that. I think, founded in 1970. We just celebrated the 50 years last year. Iconically, of Earth Day. It's a great day to look at the impact that you've had, sort of look at the calendar and try to, either we're super excited to be launching our first ever recycled barrier, fully made from the plastics that we've recycled from the river on Earth Day this year, which has never been done ever in the world. So it's like sort of using that day as a day to launch initiatives, but also a day to recheck, is like, oh, what have I done in a year's time? And how do I look forward to be, at the next Earth Day? But yeah, I think, there's so many people celebrating it all across the world. And we're super excited to be celebrating it with you guys. So definitely, I don't know how we could get, potentially a photo or a video of that recycled barrier when we do launch it. So for those of you tuning in, definitely check out. I don't know, maybe we'll link it on your channels.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to link it, and we're going to be posting this image. We're super excited to see it. So, this has been, I think you have, for you, Earth Day is significant in a lot of ways. So congratulations on that. But at the same time, thank you for finding that positivity for us. So I just want to dive again a little bit more deeper, right? This year's theme for Earth Day is to restore our Earth. So as the world returns to normal, we can't go back to business as usual. So what do you think is the primary reason we face a climate crisis today? Where do you think? So I'm a very strong believer of nipping issues at the bud, right? So if you're trying to solve a problem, you go to the root cause. When we talk about as the world returns to normal, we can't go back to business as usual. We talk about facing climate change and combating it. So in this perspective, I wanted to understand what you think is the primary reason why we face a climate crisis today, and how it all really started.
No, great. I think, definitely, this Earth Day is quite special. We're finally battling this pandemic. For the last year, we've been on lockdown for many of us, everywhere around the world. And I think we truly realize when you're stuck in an apartment, you know, I think so many people have lacked that relationship to nature. On Bali, I'm so lucky because I've literally spent every single day of the pandemic in a river or in a different one. So we didn't really feel, you know, the like I wasn't stuck in an apartment or anything. But for those of us that might have, you know, you realize how humbling nature is, and definitely, like, you know, if you're, I think that more than ever, we need, like, it has opened up so many doors in terms of, you know, mass collaborations with you know, sustainability is not like a trend anymore. It's really at the forefront of every companies. Like, this is just how people think and how they should start to implement the way we live. And I think that, you know, a global pandemic has definitely hit the button to the extremities of our world and our life. We now know what it means, you know, when the planet shuts down. Who would have thought in our lifetime? But I think that, you know, we truly have one finite planet. We know what it means now. We know the consequences. The climate crisis is truly real. You know, we're seeing year by year, especially from the rivers of Bali. We, like, this year, actually, in terms of, you know, so in Bali we have the rainy season and we also have the dry season. So we don't have winter, autumn, spring, or summer. Those are the two set seasons. But over the last, you know, 18 years of me being based on this beautiful island, that has completely changed. You don't have any seasons anymore. And this rainy season, you know, we've experienced probably the craziest rain in terms of extreme weather that we've ever experienced. And that means, you know, some of our barriers needed maintenance. You know, we've seen bridges fall. We've seen houses being slighted off away with rainfall. And so being on the front line and seeing the change, I think that we need to start hitting the reset button as quickly as possible, and really reimagining how our true relationship, each one of us, to the planet, you know, as soon as possible. And so what better day than Earth Day to start?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm processing everything you said. Powerful, right? Really understanding your relationship with the planet. So there's something very deep rooted in that thought, and coming together to build that vision is, I think, so powerful. You know, just to go back a little bit, over the years of all that you have done and all that you have learned as a change maker, what do you think is the most important piece of action that we need to take as citizens to save the planet?
That's a big question. I think that's, I mean, obviously, like, so the question is one thing that everybody can do, or what's the, sorry, could you maybe rephrase it a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So over all of the years, you know, with everything that you have done and learned as a change maker, what do you think is that one most important piece of action that we as citizens need to take to save the planet?
Great. I mean, obviously, I'm a plastic pollution activist, and, you know, plastic pollution is probably the most visual thing you can do to battle the climate crisis. Although, you know, it's a tiny part of the puzzle. But I think it's that visual thing, and if we battle and if we manage to end plastic pollution in our lifetime, it's only gonna get us, you know, the optimism and that sense of invincibility to tackle the bigger scale climate crisis. And so one thing that we can all do is look into your trash at home, to start analyzing it, see, you know, what can be replaced, what can be, you know, you'll be surprised to see everything that you consume in one day, in 1 week, or even potentially in a month. And in that trash that you look at, there's probably so much that you can avoid. So, you know, plastic bottles, plastic bags, but if we all do that and start looking into our trash, you know, from a point of view of like, look, I want to actually make a change, and be a little bit more sustainable, I think that we would be in a very different state, and that's just going to get you to think differently about it. And if you are on Bali or in a place where we are active, I would strongly recommend everyone to go to a river cleanup. These are definitely not the sexiest thing that you will ever do. It is, ruthless. Going in a river, with dead dogs, sewage waste. It's definitely the full experience where you truly realize the alarming state that the planet is in. So, I try to get CEOs out on the river with me, governmental officials, but really any volunteers, and everybody is always baffled by it. It's not a beach cleanup on a very beautiful beach. This is getting in the trenches, with water like up to here, and there's no mercy. But if we want to try to make a dent, a dent in this fight, I think that we have to sometime go to the worst places in order to truly have that awakening moment. So
Yeah, no, and when you talk about facing the reality of it, right? I think so often we, in the world that we live, tend to forget what's really going on out there, and it's so important to put yourself in those situations to empathize with what the issues are and kind of get inspired to take action. So again, so grateful to change makers like you who are giving the right people these kind of experiences to kind of get them moving, because that is what we all need. So Gary, as we're coming towards, the end of our conversation, I have two final questions for you. The first one would be, what has been your most valuable experience as a change maker, and why do you think it's important that we need a world where everyone is a change maker?
No, completely. I think that's a great question. I think the most valuable experience that I've experienced or that I've learned in this, is never to lose hope. Some days you'll be super overwhelmed with the scale of the problem. And maybe you might be in a community where you're the only one that realizes why you're doing what you're doing. But I think it's so important to continue to continue continuing that mission. Some of our expeditions, we've gone down some of the most polluted rivers in the world by kayaking down them, by sailing down them, and most recently, my brother ran across the U.S. From New York to LA, running a marathon every single day for 6 months, running a marathon every single day. So huge feats.
Wow.
Like Forrest Gump, but there was definitely lows in that journey. Wanting to push through, of being in temperatures minus 30 degrees Celsius in the middle of the Rockies with 2 meters of snow, and just keep on pushing. And this is not going to be easy, but I think that we can tell change makers apart by just that perseverance. And so I think everybody has it in them, and hopefully there's that awakening moment, where people can truly have that symbolic moment where they experience the reality of how urgent it is to act right now. And I think it's all about those small changes again that we can all do to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was so powerful where you mentioned that it's within all of us. We just need to find it. And I hope conversations like these help others who haven't found it yet find it. And just to kind of move on to what all change makers do around the world, even if they are in their own homes, about Earth Day. I think definitely one thing you said was look into your trash. But beyond that, is there anything more you want to share?
I think we can all start, especially if you're in your home, the pandemic has taught us that, we have probably the most powerful tool out there to get educated and to start watching, documentaries, reading on certain issues that are, meaningful to you when it speaks to the environment and to our planet and to this Mother Earth ship that we're on. But so, I think that spend some time learning if you, and I think that you'll be quite surprised that, this beautiful planet that we're on is the most magical place, and we have to start protecting it, all of us. And that's, from the food that we eat, to the water that we drink, to the electricity, in our houses. We have to start to ask those bigger questions of, how do I get all of these things? Is it, like not everything comes from somewhere, and everything comes from this planet. So we need to start protecting it very differently if we want to, strive for many, many generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think every time you finish on such a powerful note. So finishing on that powerful note, thank you so much, Gary, for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I've learned so much through this very short conversation, and I hope to continue to learn more from you, and I hope that everyone else around us also continues. So to conclude, I just want to remind everyone that State of Youth podcast will be out every other week with a brand new episode, and that your followers can give suggestions about the next topics by sending a DM to the State of Youth Instagram profile. I want to thank everyone who joined in and listened to us. And I want to thank you again, Gary, for giving us your time and sharing your experiences. I think they're tremendously valuable and they have so much potential to change the world. It's been a true pleasure speaking.
Thank you so much, Garvita. No, thank you to all of you for tuning in. But yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.